I speak 10 languages, the young woman declared, her hands in handcuffs. The judge bellowed with laughter. Right, and I'm a global diplomat, he scoffed in front of the packed courtroom. But when she opened her mouth, his laughter froze. The Ontario Superior Court of Justice courtroom had never been so full. Every seat occupied, people standing against the walls, journalists with cameras off, waiting for the precise moment to capture the day's news. The collective murmur created a symphony of expectation that vibrated the air conditioning of the old courthouse building. Anya Sharma walked towards the stand, her hands cuffed. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence that fell when Court Constable Doug Miller shouted, "All rise. The court is now in session." Everyone stood as Justice Eleanor Vance entered through the side door, carrying a disorganized stack of documents. She was a woman of sturdy build, with silver hair pulled back perfectly, and that kind of expression that only years of sentencing others' lives can sculpt onto a face. A mixture of boredom, superiority, and occasional disdain. "Please be seated," Justice Vance ordered, dropping the documents onto her desk with a dry thud that startled several people present. Anya remained standing between two constables with Meena Patel, her legal aid lawyer, to her left. Meena was a middle-aged woman carrying the weight of too many cases and too little budget. She had pronounced dark circles under her eyes and that barely perceptible tremor in her hands that betrays an excess of caffeine and a lack of sleep. Case number 47B, 2024, announced the court clerk. The Crown versus Anya Sharma. Charges: wire fraud, identity theft, and aggravated theft. The murmur returned to the room like a wave. Anya felt hundreds of eyes boring into her back, judging her before any evidence had been presented. She knew that feeling. She had felt it all her life. Crown Attorney Robert Sterling rose with theatrical movements, adjusting his tie as if he were an actor on opening night. He was a slender man with sharp features who spoke with that high-class Toronto accent that immediately establishes hierarchies in any room. "Your Honor," Sterling began with a resonant voice, "we have before us a young woman who has perpetrated one of the most elaborate frauds this court has ever seen. For months, Miss Sharma impersonated a certified translator, offering services to multinational corporations, educational institutions, and even government agencies. He took a dramatic pause, walking slowly in front of the jury box. She collected thousands of dollars for translations she purportedly performed in 10 different languages. 10, Your Honor. But the reality is that this young woman barely finished high school and holds no certification, no degree, no credentials to back up her alleged linguistic capacity." Sterling turned toward Anya with a smile that tried to be compassionate but dripped with condescension. "We understand that financial necessity can lead people to make wrong choices, but fraud is fraud, regardless of the circumstances." Anya clenched her fists within the handcuffs. Every word from the Crown Attorney was like a hammer, striking her dignity. Not because they were true, but because no one seemed interested in hearing her side of the story. Justice Vance flipped through the documents with a bored expression, as if this were just another case on her endless list of judicial responsibilities. She yawned without bothering to cover her mouth. "Does the defense have anything to say before we proceed?" she asked in a monotone voice, without even looking up from the papers. Meena Patel cleared her throat. Her hands trembled as she held her worn notepad. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence. The charges presented are based on misunderstandings and lack of communication with her employers. Ms. Sharma is prepared to demonstrate that she possesses the capacities she claims to have." "Demonstrate?" Justice Vance finally looked up, her eyebrows arching with mocking interest. "And how exactly do you plan to demonstrate that she speaks 10 languages? Is she going to sing us a song in each one?" Some nervous laughter broke out from the public. The judge smiled, pleased with her own humor. "Your Honor, with all due respect," Meena tried to continue, but Justice Vance interrupted her with a wave of her hand. "Miss Patel, I have reviewed this case. Your client is 23 years old. She grew up in a lower-income neighborhood and, according to records, was cleaning offices before this alleged translation business. There is no record of post-secondary education, no international certification, nothing to suggest that this young woman could speak even 3 languages, much less 10. It was then that Anya lifted her head. Her eyes, which had been fixed on the floor throughout the hearing, met the judge's directly. There was fire in that look. There were years of humiliation, of being underestimated, of being invisible. "Permission to speak, Your Honor," she said with a clear, firm voice. Justice Vance looked at her, surprised. Most defendants remained silent during preliminary hearings, letting their lawyers speak for them. But there was something in the way this young woman looked at her that caused a mixture of irritation and curiosity. "Do you have anything relevant to add to the case?" she asked skeptically. "I speak 10 languages." Anya pronounced each word with crystal clarity, without an ounce of doubt in her voice. "And I can prove it right here, right now, if Your Honor permits." The silence that followed was so profound that you could hear the hum of the fluorescent ceiling lights. Everyone present leaned forward, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. And then Justice Eleanor Vance did something no one expected. She threw her head back and let out a burst of laughter. It was not polite or restrained laughter. It was a thunderous, almost hysterical guffaw that made her heavy frame vibrate on the bench. "This is unbelievable," she exclaimed between laughs, wiping tears from her eyes with a tissue. "The accused wants to demonstrate she speaks 10 languages here in my court." Other laughs joined the judges. Crown Attorney Sterling was smiling broadly, shaking his head in disbelief. Some members of the public were openly laughing, others whispering mocking comments. Miss Sharma, Justice Vance, managed to control her laughter enough to speak, though her voice still trembled with amusement. "I appreciate your creativity, but this is a court of law, not a televised talent show. We are not going to waste the court's time with circus demonstrations. Does justice seem like a circus to you?" Anya's voice cut the air like a knife. The judge's laughter froze instantly. Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, a dangerous silence filled the room. "Excuse me?" Her voice dropped to a menacing tone. Anya took a step forward, ignoring the warning tug. Meena Patel gave her arm. "With all due respect, Your Honor, you just laughed at me, without hearing me. You judged me without allowing me to present my defense. If that's not a circus, I don't know what is." Constable Miller took a step forward, ready to intervene if the situation escalated, but the judge raised a hand to stop him. Justice Vance leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "You have guts, Miss Sharma, I'll give you that, but guts won't save you from the evidence against you." "The evidence is lying," Anya replied. "Or rather, the people who interpreted it lied because they never bothered to verify if I really could do what I claimed." "And why would we do that?" Sterling intervened from his seat. "Why should the Crown spend resources verifying the fanciful claims of someone who is clearly trying to avoid the consequences of her actions?" "Because that is your obligation." Anya turned toward the Crown Attorney, her voice gaining strength. "Your obligation is to seek the truth, not assume guilt based on prejudice." "Order." Justice Vance pounded her gavel against the desk. "Miss Sharma, you are treading dangerous ground. I suggest you remain silent before I charge you with contempt." Anya took a deep breath. She could feel her heart pounding so hard she thought everyone in the room could hear it. But she wasn't going to back down. Not this time. She had backed down all her life. "Your Honor," Meena Patel rushed to intervene, her voice trembling but determined. "I formally request that my client be allowed to demonstrate her linguistic capacities. If she can prove that she speaks the languages she claims, that would fundamentally change the nature of this case." Justice Vance looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and annoyance. "Miss Patel, are you really suggesting we turn this court into a language exam?" "I am suggesting we give my client the opportunity to defend herself properly," Meena replied, finding a reserve of courage she didn't know she possessed. "Isn't that what justice represents?" The judge leaned back in her chair, which creaked under her weight. She stared at Anya for a long moment, her eyes assessing her as if she were a puzzle she couldn't solve. There was something about this young woman that unsettled her. It wasn't just her audacity, it was the absolute certainty in her eyes. "Fine," she finally said, to the surprise of everyone in the room. "I will give you your opportunity to make a public fool of yourself. But when you fail, and you will fail, I will add charges of contempt and obstruction of justice to your already considerable list of legal problems." She turned toward her clerk. "Contact the language department at the University of Toronto. I need them to send 10 professors, one specialist in each of the languages Miss Sharma claims to speak." Anya felt an electric jolt run through her body. She would finally have her chance. Finally, someone would listen to her. Miss Sharma. Justice Vance looked at her with that mocking smile she had perfected over decades. "I hope you know what you are doing, because when this is over, I will not only find you guilty of fraud, but the whole world will know exactly what kind of liar you are." "I'm not a liar," Anya replied with a calm but firm voice. "And when this is over, you will have to apologize." The room erupted in scandalized murmurs. No one, absolutely no one, spoke to Justice Vance that way. Silence. The gavel struck again. Vance looked at Anya with a mixture of fury and something that might have been respect. "This hearing is postponed until the evaluators are present. That will be in 3 days. And believe me, Miss Sharma, Those 3 days will be the last days of freedom you enjoy for a long time." As the constables escorted her out of the courtroom, Anya couldn't help but wonder if she had made the biggest mistake of her life, or if she had finally taken the first step toward the vindication she so desperately longed for. What she didn't know was that the coming days would reveal secrets that would change not only her destiny but that of everyone present in that room. The metallic sound of the doors closing echoed like thunder in Anya's ears. The Metro West Detention Center was a 3-story building that smelled of industrial disinfectant mixed with human despair. The white walls, peeling at the corners, seemed to absorb all the natural light trying to enter through the small barred windows. Anya walked down the corridor, flanked by 2 officers. Her handcuffs had been removed, but the feeling of oppression remained, now invisible but heavier than any metal. Other inmates watched her from their cells, some with curiosity, others with that empty gaze that only prolonged confinement can create. "Cell 47C, announced Officer Sarah Chen, a young woman with a professional but not cruel expression. She opened the metal door with a screech that echoed throughout the corridor. "You have a cellmate. Hope you get along." Anya stepped inside, and the door closed behind her with a definitive bang that made her shiver. The cell was small. 2 narrow bunks, a small sink, an unprivate toilet, and a window so high it only served to remind them that the outside world existed but was out of reach. On the lower bunk, a middle-aged woman looked up from a worn book. Brenda Lacroix's face was marked with lines that told stories she would probably never share. Her graying hair was tied back in a tight braid, and her eyes, though tired, still retained a spark of intelligence. "So you're the famous polyglot," Brenda said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The whole complex is talking about you, the girl who defied Justice Vance and lived to tell the tale." Anya sat on the top bunk, feeling the thin, hard mattress beneath her body. She didn't respond immediately. She was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. The adrenaline from the hearing had evaporated, leaving only a heavy void in her chest. "I'm not famous," she finally said. "I'm just someone who got tired of being underestimated." Brenda let out a dry laugh. "In here, we're all tired of something. The difference is that most of us have given up. You still have fire. That's dangerous in a place like this." "Dangerous? Why?" "Because hope hurts more than resignation." Brenda closed her book. "Do you really speak 10 languages?" Anya nodded, looking at the stained cell ceiling. 11, actually, but no one asked. 11. Brenda sat up, genuinely interested. How is it possible that a girl your age speaks 11 languages? For the first time in days, Anya felt like talking. Perhaps because Brenda wasn't looking at her with mockery or disdain. Perhaps because in that small, claustrophobic space, they were both just 2 human beings trying to survive. "My grandmother," Anya began, her voice softening with the memory. "Grandma Lucia. She worked all her life as a domestic worker for diplomatic families in Ottawa. Every time one family left, another arrived. Germans, French, Chinese, Russians, Arabs. She learned pieces of all those languages just to communicate, to be indispensable." Brenda listened in silence, and Anya continued. "When my parents died in a bus accident, I was 5 years old. My grandmother took me in and brought me with her to all those houses. While she cleaned, cooked, and ironed, I sat with the children of those families. I played with them, ate with them, learned with them." Her voice broke slightly at the memory. "The diplomats changed every 2 or 3 years. Every time I made a friend, they left. Every time I learned to communicate perfectly in one language, a new family arrived with a different one. But I never stopped learning. It was my way of keeping those memories, those connections, alive." "And your grandmother?" Brenda asked, softly. "She died 2 years ago. Heart attack. 50 years of working dawn till dusk eventually killed her." Anya closed her eyes tightly, and I was left alone, with no formal education, no certificates to prove what I knew, only with languages in my head and no way to prove they were real. "So, you started working as a translator," Brenda finished. "I tried to get a job at official agencies, but they all wanted university degrees, international certifications. No one wanted to give me even a chance to prove what I could do." The frustration was palpable in her voice. "So I started my own business. I offered my services online, charged less than the big agencies, and did impeccable work. Then, why are you here?" Anya opened her eyes and looked directly at Brenda. "Because someone decided it was impossible for a girl without a university education to do what I was doing. They reported my services as fraud, without even checking the quality of my work. And now I'm here waiting to prove something I should never have had to prove." The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted their conversation. The door opened, and Officer Chen appeared again. "Sharma, you have a visitor. Consultation room." Anya got down from the bunk, confused. She hadn't called anyone. She had no one to call. The consultation room was a small space, divided by a metal table. Sitting on the other side was Meena Patel, her legal aid lawyer, but she wasn't alone. Next to her was a woman Anya didn't know, elegant, professional, with a leather briefcase on the table. "Anya, this is Dr. Elena Vasquez." Meena made the introductions. "She's a forensic psychologist. Crown Attorney Sterling requested a psychological evaluation before the next hearing." Anya felt a knot forming in her stomach. "Psychological evaluation? Why, doctor?" Vasquez spoke with a calm, professional voice. "It's standard procedure in cases where the accused presents behaviors that could be considered unusual. Your confrontation with Justice Vance raised some flags." "Flags?" Anya felt indignation rising. "Defending myself is unusual behavior? It's not about that," Meena quickly intervened. "Anya, listen. The Crown is trying to build a profile suggesting you have tendencies toward pathological fantasy. They want to argue that you genuinely believe you speak those languages when, in reality, you don't. That's ridiculous." Anya hit the table with her palm. "I'm not crazy. No one is saying you are," Dr. Vasquez maintained her neutral tone. "But I need to make my evaluation. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me." For the next hour, Anya answered question after question about her childhood, the death of her parents, living with her grandmother, learning languages, feeling lonely, her fears, her dreams, her frustrations. "Doctor." Vasquez took meticulous notes, her expression impossible to read. "One last question," she finally said. "Have you ever felt that people don't understand you? That you live in a different world than everyone else?" Anya thought carefully before answering. "Every day of my life. But not because I'm crazy, but because I've lived in worlds most people will never experience. I've spoken in languages most people will never learn. I've seen how words can build bridges or raise walls. So yes, I live in a different world, but it's real. It's as real as the prejudice that brought me here." The doctor closed her notebook. "Thank you for your cooperation, Anya. I will present my report before the hearing." When she left, Meena approached Anya, her expression worried. "There's something else you need to know. Justice Vance contacted the University of Toronto, but it wasn't just to get evaluators." "What do you mean?" "She investigated your background further. She found something." Meena pulled some documents from her bag. "Years ago, when you were 17, you applied for a scholarship at the Royal Canadian Institute of Languages, RCIL. Do you remember?" Anya nodded slowly. "They rejected me. They said my application was unrealistic because I claimed to speak too many languages for my age." "Exactly. And Justice Vance is using that as evidence that you've been lying about your abilities for years. She argues it's a pattern of fraudulent behavior." The room seemed to shrink around Anya. Every time she tried to move forward, the system pushed her back. Every attempt to prove her worth became another piece of evidence against her. "Is there anything else?" she asked, fearing the answer. Meena hesitated before continuing. "The evaluators who are coming. Vance specifically asked for the most rigorous professors, known for being extremely strict. They're not coming to give you a fair chance, Anya. They're coming to dismantle you." The silence that followed was crushing. Anya could feel the weight of the entire judicial system pressing against her, trying to crush that spark of hope that still burned in her chest. "How much time do I have?" she finally asked. 2 more days. The hearing is the day after tomorrow. Then I need to use every second. Meena, I need you to get me something. Books, study materials, in all the languages you can find. If they're going to make this difficult, then I'm going to prepare myself like never before in my life." Meena looked at her with a mixture of admiration and sadness. "Anya, even if you prove you speak those languages, the Crown has other charges. The clients who reported fraud, the complaints about incorrect translations." "Incorrect translations?" Anya interrupted her. "What incorrect translations?" "There are 3 clients who claim that the translations you did contained serious errors that cost them money and reputation." Anya felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "That's impossible. I checked every translation 3 times. I was meticulous. I would never ever have submitted something with serious errors." "Do you have copies of those translations?" "All of them, on my computer, but the police confiscated it as evidence." Meena made a note. "I'm going to request access to those files. If we can prove the translations were correct, That would dismantle part of the Crown's accusation. When Anya returned to her cell, Brenda was waiting for her with a curious expression. Bad news, getting worse. Anya slumped onto her bunk. Not only do I have to prove I speak 10 languages in front of professors who have already decided I'm lying, I also have to prove that translations I know I did correctly have no errors and defend myself against a psychological evaluation that will probably paint me as delusional. Brenda whistled softly. When you said you had fire, I wasn't kidding. But, Anya, are you sure you want to go through with this? You could accept a plea deal, serve a minor sentence, get on with your life, and give up? Anya looked at the ceiling. Accept that the world is right and I am wrong? I can't, Brenda. If I give up now, I would be betraying my grandmother. All those years of learning, all those kids who have talent but don't have the papers to prove it. Then rest. Brenda turned off the cell light, because in 2 days, you're going to need every ounce of strength you have. In the darkness, Anya closed her eyes, but she couldn't sleep. Her mind reviewed vocabulary, grammar, and idioms in each of the languages she had learned. But more than that, she thought about all the times she had been underestimated, ignored, dismissed. The world was about to see what she was capable of. She only hoped it would be enough. Dawn arrived at the detention center, with that heavy silence that only exists in places where freedom is a distant memory. Anya hadn't slept. Her eyes burned with fatigue, but her mind continued to process verbal conjugations, grammatical structures, and idiomatic expressions in Mandarin, Arabic, German, French. Brenda was snoring softly on the lower bunk, a comforting sound amid so much uncertainty. Anya had spent the night whispering words softly, each language flowing like rivers converging into the ocean of her memory. The sound of approaching footsteps interrupted her concentration. It was too early for breakfast. The metal door opened, and Officer Chen appeared with a serious expression. Sharma, you have a visitor. Consultation room. Now. Brenda woke up startled. At this hour, who visits someone before dawn? Anya got down from her bunk, her heart starting to beat faster. She followed Chen down the empty corridors, the echo of her steps resounding like war drums. When they reached the consultation room, the surprise on Anya's face was evident. Sitting on the other side of the table was a man of Asian origin, with a distressed expression and a business briefcase on his lap. She recognized him immediately. Mr. Kim? Anya whispered incredulously. David Kim stood up abruptly, his hands visibly trembling. He was one of the 3 clients who had reported her translations as fraudulent. He worked for a technology company that needed documents translated from English to Mandarin for an expansion in China. Miss Sharma, I need to talk to you. His voice was choked, as if every word cost him physical effort. I don't have much time. My lawyer doesn't know I'm here. Chen closed the door but remained inside. Standard protocol for officially unauthorized visits. What are you doing here? Anya sat down slowly, trying to process this surreal situation. Kim ran his hands over his face, and Anya noticed the deep, dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. I came to tell you the truth I should have told from the beginning. Your translations were perfect. Kim blurted out the words as if he had been holding his breath for months. Every document you translated for my company was impeccable, better than any professional agency we had used before. The partners in Beijing were impressed with the technical accuracy and cultural sensitivity. Anya felt as if the floor was moving beneath her feet. Then why? Because my boss, the CEO, discovered that I had contracted your services without verifying your university credentials. Kim lowered his gaze, shame evident in every line of his face. He threatened to fire me if I didn't find a way to justify why I had spent company funds on an uncertified translator. He decided to destroy my life to save his job. Anya felt a mixture of fury and vindication growing in her chest. It wasn't that simple. Kim looked up, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Mr. Alex Dubois, our corporate lawyer, suggested we report the translations as defective. He said it was the only way to recover the money and protect the company from any legal responsibility. He suggested lying. Anya's voice rose in pitch. He suggested protecting corporate interests, Kim corrected bitterly. In the business world, Miss Sharma, the truth is secondary to financial survival. But I haven't been able to sleep since I signed that false declaration. I have a daughter your age. Every time I look at her, I see your face on the news, being publicly humiliated for something you didn't do. Anya took a deep breath, trying to control the emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. Why are you telling me this now? Why not before the trial? Because I'm a coward, Kim admitted with a broken voice. Because I needed my job, my salary, my reputation. But seeing what they have done to you, seeing Justice Vance laughing at you on television was too much. My wife told me last night that she couldn't continue living with a man without honor, and she was right. He pulled a thick envelope from his briefcase. Here is everything. Copies of the original translations with the approvals from our partners in Beijing. Emails where they specifically praise your work. And my sworn affidavit. Admitting that I lied under corporate pressure. Anya took the envelope with trembling hands. It was heavy, full of pages that could completely change her case. Mr. Kim, do you understand what this means for you? She asked softly. Admitting perjury could lead to prison. I know, Kim smiled sadly. But I prefer to be in prison with my honor intact than free as a liar. My daughter deserves a father she can be proud of. Chen approached the table. Sir, I need to escort you out. This visit is already irregular. Kim stood up, but before leaving, he looked Anya directly in the eyes. Miss Sharma, you are extraordinary. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And if I may offer one piece of advice, when you're in that courtroom tomorrow, don't just prove you speak those languages. Prove why it matters. Prove that real talent doesn't need certificates to be valid. When he left, Anya was left alone in the room, clutching the envelope as if it were a life raft. Tears she had been holding back for days finally began to fall. They were not tears of sadness, but of relief mixed with rage for everything she had had to endure because of corporate lies. The door opened again, and Meena Patel rushed in, her hair disheveled and an expression of controlled panic. Anya, what was that? Chen called me saying David Kim was here. What did he want? Anya handed her the envelope. Our salvation. As Meena frantically reviewed the documents, her eyes grew wider with each page. This is incredible. With this, we can completely dismantle the fraud charges. We can prove the translations were correct and that the accusations were fabricated. But will it be enough? Anya asked. I still have to prove I speak the languages, and the Crown will probably say Kim is lying now to help me. You're right. Meena sat down, her mind working at full speed. We need more. We need to find the other 2 clients who accused you. And how do we do that from here? Meena pulled out her cell phone. Leave that to me. I have contacts. If Kim had a conscience attack, maybe the others will too. Over the next few hours, while Anya was escorted back to her cell, Meena worked frantically, making calls, sending emails, moving every contact she had in her legal arsenal. Back in the cell, Brenda watched Anya with curiosity. Something changed, she simply said. You have a different look. One of my accusers came to confess. He lied. Anya sat down, still processing everything. It turns out my translations were perfect. I was falsely accused to protect corporate interests. Brenda whistled quietly. The system protecting itself. Same old story. But this time someone had the courage to tell the truth. Anya looked out the small high window. He risked everything to clear my name. And that gives you hope? It gives me something more than hope. It gives me proof that I'm not crazy, that I'm not wrong, that the world is wrong about me. A metallic sound echoed down the corridor. It was the mobile library hour, a cart that passed twice a week with books for the inmates. A young woman was pushing the cart, stopping at each cell. When she reached cell 47, Anya recognized her. It was Maya Singh, a girl barely 19 she had seen in the dining hall. She had intelligent eyes and that particular sadness of someone who has seen too much, too young. Any books you need? Maya asked softly. Do you have anything in foreign languages? Anya asked, hopefully. Maya's eyes lit up. Are you the girl who's going to prove she speaks 10 languages? 11, actually. I have something for you. Maya looked nervously to both sides of the corridor before taking out a package wrapped in paper. Your lawyer asked me to bring this. I shouldn't, but well, I believe in second chances. Anya unwrapped the package and found 6 books in different languages: Mandarin, Arabic, Russian, German, French, and Portuguese. They were not ordinary books, but complex legal and technical texts. Your lawyer said to practice with these, Maya whispered. The professors tomorrow are going to try to trip you up with specialized technical vocabulary. How do you know that? Because one of them, Professor Julian Moreau, came in for a legal consultation here a few days ago. I overheard him talking to the director about how to unmask an imposter who claimed impossible linguistic abilities. Anya's blood ran cold. Did he say anything else? He said he had prepared specialized technical texts in each language: medical, legal, scientific vocabulary, things that only someone with years of formal university study could know. Brenda sat up in her bunk. That's cheating. They're setting up an exam designed for you to fail. It's not cheating, if they never promise to be fair. Anya opened the first book, her eyes scanning the pages in Mandarin. But I can learn. I've always been able to learn. You have less than 24 hours, Maya pointed out. How are you going to memorize technical vocabulary in 6 languages in one day? Anya looked at her with that fierce determination that had kept her alive all her life. The same way I've done everything else. Without giving up. When Maya left, Brenda watched Anya open book after book, her concentration absolute. Do you know what's the most impressive thing about you? Brenda said, after a long silence. It's not that you speak languages, it's that you never accept defeat as an option. My grandmother used to say, the world will tell you 1,000 times you can't. You only need to prove it once to show that you can. Anya spent the rest of the day and all night immersed in those books. She barely ate, barely moved. Brenda brought her water, reminded her to breathe, but Anya was in another world, a world of words, meanings, linguistic connections. When the first light of dawn began to filter through the high window, Anya closed the last book. Her eyes were red, her body trembling with exhaustion, but there was something different in her expression. Ready? Brenda asked. Ready, Anya replied. Officer Chen arrived early. Sharma, it's time. Your lawyer is waiting. Today is the day. As she walked down the corridors toward the exit, other inmates began to pound on their cell doors. It wasn't a threatening sound, but one of support. Many of them had heard her story. Many of them had been judged by what the system thought they were, rather than by what they really were. Show them, someone shouted. Don't let them crush you. Another voice joined in. Anya felt a strange energy running through her body. She wasn't alone. She had never been alone. All those anonymous faces behind the metal doors were reminders that there were more people like her, waiting for a chance to prove their truth. Meena was waiting for her in the processing area with something unexpected. A suitcase. What is this? Anya asked. Your future, if all goes well. Meena opened the suitcase, revealing a professional outfit. You are not going into that courtroom as an accused. You are going in as the professional you are. As Anya changed, Meena gave her the latest news. I found the second client. He's willing to testify that his accusation was also false. The third one still hasn't responded, but 2 out of 3 is enough to create reasonable doubt. And the psychological evaluation? Meena grimaced. Dr. Vasquez presented her report. It's mixed. She doesn't say you're crazy, but she doesn't fully defend you either. She suggests you have a non-conventional personality with high confidence in self-taught abilities. That's just an elegant way of saying they don't trust me. Exactly. That's why you need to be perfect today. Not just good, perfect. The transport vehicle took them to the courthouse. The building looked different in the morning light, more imposing, more intimidating, like a Roman Colosseum where gladiators fought for their lives. But Anya was no longer the same person who had entered there days ago. Now she had evidence, she had allies, and most importantly, she had the truth. The courtroom was even more crowded than the first time. News cameras filled every permitted corner. Journalists whispered to each other, and in the front row, 10 University of Toronto professors waited with expressions ranging from curiosity to open disdain. Justice Vance entered with the same arrogance as always, but when her gaze met Anya's, something changed in her eyes. Perhaps she recognized that this would not be the easy victory she had anticipated. Let the spectacle begin, she muttered, hitting her gavel. And so began the day that would change everything. Justice Vance's gavel echoed like a gunshot in the packed courtroom. The collective murmur instantly faded, replaced by a tension so dense that the air itself seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Order in the court! Justice Vance pronounced the words with that authoritative tone she had perfected over decades on the bench. Her eyes swept over the crowd before resting on the 10 professors seated in a special row facing the stand. Professors from the University of Toronto, thank you for your presence. Today we will conduct an evaluation that, frankly, I consider a waste of time, but which the accused has insisted on carrying out. Anya stood next to Meena, her posture erect despite the exhaustion she felt in every fiber of her being. 24 hours without sleep, studying technical vocabulary that most people would take years to master, but she was not most people. Professor Julien Moreau stood up, adjusting his glasses with a gesture that conveyed academic superiority. He was a slender man with dark hair slicked back with gel, and that expression of someone who considers formal knowledge the only valid knowledge. Your Honor, he began with a clear, academic voice. My colleagues and I have prepared a series of rigorous evaluations. It's not simply about conversing in different languages, but about demonstrating technical mastery, deep cultural understanding, and specialized translation capacity. Proceed. Justice Vance motioned with her hand, leaning back in her chair as if she were about to witness a cheap magic show. Moreau opened a thick folder. Ms. Sharma, we will begin with Mandarin. Professor Yuki Tanaka, although she specializes in Japanese, also masters Mandarin and will evaluate this first section. A middle-aged Asian woman stood up. Professor Tanaka had a serene presence, but her gaze was analytical, dissecting Anya with every passing second. The professor spoke in perfect, fluid Mandarin, asking Anya to read a medical text and then explain its meaning in English. She handed her a document. Anya took the paper. It was a complex medical text about cardiovascular procedures, full of technical terminology that would make any professional translator sweat. The room held its breath. Anya read the document silently for 30 seconds. Then, without hesitation, she began to speak in fluid Mandarin. Her pronunciation was impeccable, her tones precise. She not only read the text, but explained it, adding cultural context about how certain Chinese medical terms differ in concept from Western ones. Then, she switched to English without pause, translating not only the words, but the deep meaning, explaining the medical implications with a level of detail that left even Professor Tanaka stunned. The professor murmured something in Mandarin to Moreau, commenting that Anya's pronunciation was perfect and impossible for someone without formal training. I know, Anya replied in the same language, looking directly at Tanaka. Then, she switched to English. Because I learned from the Chen family, diplomats who lived in Beijing for 6 years. Their little daughter taught me not only the language, but the songs, the games, the ways of thinking. Language is not just words, Professor. It is soul. A murmur ran through the room. Journalist Marco Delgado scribbled frantically in his notebook. This was journalistic gold. Next language, Moreau said abruptly, clearly uncomfortable with what he had just witnessed. German, Professor Hans Müller. Müller was a stout man, with a blonde beard and a typically Germanic severe expression. He stood up and spoke in closed German with a deliberately complicated accent, asking Anya to explain the clauses of a legal contract and its legal implications. He handed her a dense legal contract, full of German legal jargon that even native lawyers would find challenging. Anya read it, and again, her response was more than perfect. She not only translated but identified possible legal issues in the contract, pointed out linguistic ambiguities that could cause disputes, and did it all while fluently alternating between German and English. Müller looked at her with a mixture of astonishment and bewilderment. He asked her in German where she had learned all that. Anya responded in fluid German before translating into English. From the Schneider family. Mr. Schneider was an international lawyer. His wife would let me sit in his office while he worked. I was 10 years old and read his contracts while he thought I was just drawing. I learned that legal German is like a puzzle where every word has exact weight. Meena Patel watched with tears in her eyes. This was more than she had hoped for. Anya was not just demonstrating competence, she was demonstrating mastery. Arabic, Moreau practically spat out the word. Professor Amira Hassan. Hassan was an elegant woman with an intelligent and calculating expression. She spoke in classical Arabic, the kind used in religious and academic texts, deliberately archaic and complex. She asked Anya to read a religious text and explain its deep philosophical meaning. It was a text with complex philosophical commentaries. Anya closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, there was something different in her expression. She began to recite in Arabic, her voice taking on that particular melodic cadence of the well-spoken language. She not only translated the text, but explained the multiple layers of interpretation, the historical references, the theological debates the passage had generated for centuries. She spoke about how classical Arabic differs from modern Arabic, about the inherent poetry in every verse. Hassan stood up, visibly moved. How is this possible? This requires years of theological study. The Al-Rahman family, Anya replied softly in English. The father was an imam. He taught me that Arabic is not just a language, it is a way of seeing the universe, that every word has a root, history, a connection to other words. It is a language that breathes poetry. Justice Vance was no longer leaning back in her chair. She was leaning forward. Her expression had changed from mockery to something that might have been involuntary respect. One after another, the professors presented their challenges. Russian with Professor Igor Volkov, who asked her to recite classical literature and explain complex literary symbolism. French with culinary and wine terminology so specific that only a sommelier or professional chef would know. Italian with opera and music. Brazilian Portuguese with complex regional idioms. Japanese with multiple writing systems, Korean with intricate levels of formality. Each time, Anya not only met, but exceeded expectations. And each time she added that personal dimension, that learning story that revealed not only technical knowledge, but deep understanding and genuine love for each language. When Professor Volkov asked her to explain a passage of classic Russian literature, Anya not only translated the words, but captured the melancholy soul of the text, explaining historical and emotional contexts that only someone truly immersed in Russian culture could understand. The Ivanov family, she explained. Mr. Ivanov was a literature professor. He would read Dostoevsky to me while his wife prepared borscht. I was 12 years old and would cry with the stories. He told me that if you can't feel the Russian suffering in the words, you're not truly reading the masters. The professor evaluating French presented her with a text on wines, with terminology so specialized, it seemed designed to make even professional translators fail. Anya not only identified every grape variety, every wine region mentioned, but explained the cultural subtleties of why certain French words to describe wine do not have an exact translation into English. Monsieur Dubois was a sommelier, she explained with a nostalgic smile. He would let me smell the wines while he worked. He said that the French of wine is liquid poetry. Every word evokes earth, sun, time. It is not translated, it is felt. But then came the moment that would change everything. The last language was Hebrew. Moreau, who also mastered Hebrew in addition to English, stood up personally for this evaluation. He had saved what he considered his knockout punch for the end. Miss Sharma, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. This last text is particularly challenging. It is an ancient philosophical treatise on ethics and justice, extremely complex even for dedicated scholars. He handed her the document. Anya began to read, and suddenly her expression changed. It wasn't confusion or difficulty, it was recognition. Professor Moreau, she said slowly, this text, I know this text. You know it? Moreau smiled smugly. I highly doubt you've had access to ancient Hebrew philosophical manuscripts. No, the manuscript. Anya looked up, her eyes shining with something dangerous. I know the translation because I did it. The silence that fell over the room was absolute. Even the ventilation system seemed to stop humming. Excuse me? Moreau blinked. Anya pointed at the document. 6 years ago, when I was 17, I worked on an online translation service under a pseudonym. An anonymous client requested the translation of this philosophical treatise from ancient Hebrew to modern English. He paid well, but requested complete anonymity. I spent 3 weeks working on this, researching every word, every concept. It was one of my first professional jobs. She turned toward Moreau, her voice gaining strength. And you, Professor Moreau, published an academic article 4 years ago titled New Interpretations of Hebrew Ethical Texts. I read that article. You used my translation word for word, without giving credit. The room erupted in scandalized murmurs. Moreau visibly paled. That is an absurd accusation, he stammered. Do you have any proof? I have all my working files, Anya replied calmly, including translation notes, preliminary versions, correspondence with the client, all saved on my computer, the same computer that is in the possession of the Crown as evidence. Meena Patel jumped up. Your Honor, I request immediate access to those digital files. If what my client says is true, this not only demonstrates her competence, but exposes academic plagiarism. Crown Attorney Sterling looked like a cornered animal. Your Honor, this is a distraction. It's not relevant to the case. Not relevant? Justice Vance finally found her voice. Mr. Sterling, if the accused can demonstrate that one of the evaluators I chose used her work without credit, that is extremely relevant to this case. It shows that she is not only competent, but has been competent for years. She turned toward Moreau, her expression now cold. Professor Moreau, do you have anything to say? Moreau opened and closed his mouth like a fish out of water. The other professors looked at him with mixtures of shock and disgust. In the academic world, plagiarism was the unforgivable sin. I received that translation from a colleague. I didn't know it was from an online service. I assumed it was public work. Assumed? Professor Hassan stood up, her voice sharp. Professor Moreau, academic protocol requires verifying the source of all material. This is basic. Professor Muller added sternly. If this is true, the University of Toronto will have to formally investigate. Justice Vance struck her gavel. Order. Constable Miller. Bring the evidence, computer. Now. While they waited, Anya remained standing, her heart pounding, but her expression calm. She had waited 6 years for this moment. 6 years since she saw her work published under another's name. She never thought justice would arrive this way, but life had strange ways of completing circles. Miller returned with the laptop in an evidence bag. The court technician turned it on, and under judicial supervision, Mina navigated to the files Anya indicated. Everything was there. The preliminary versions of the translation dated 6 years ago, the detailed notes explaining each translation decision, the emails with the client, and the most damning, the final version, identical word for word to the one Moreau had published in his supposedly original article. Justice Vance examined the files personally, her expression growing darker with each document she reviewed. Finally, she looked up at Moreau. "Professor, I strongly suggest you contact your union. You're going to need legal representation." She turned to the other 9 professors. "Does anyone else have doubts about Miss Sharma's linguistic competence?" One by one, each professor shook their head. Professor Hassan even stood up. "Your Honor, in my 20 years of evaluating linguistic competence, I have never seen anyone with the mastery this young woman has demonstrated today. She doesn't just speak these languages, she lives them. She understands them at levels most academics can only aspire to, and she did it without resources, without privilege, only with determination and a genuine love for learning." Hassan's words resonated in the room. Vance leaned back in her chair, running a hand over her face. For the first time in decades, she seemed truly unsure how to proceed. "Mr. Sterling," she finally said, "do you have anything further to present?" The Crown Attorney stood up slowly. He knew he had lost. "Your Honor, in light of these developments, and considering that 2 of the 3 plaintiff clients have withdrawn their accusations and confessed to lying under corporate pressure, the Crown requests to withdraw all charges." The murmur in the room turned into a roar. Justice Vance pounded her gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order in my court!" When silence returned, Vance looked at Anya for a long moment. In her eyes was something that had never been there before. "Apology, Miss Sharma," she began, her voice unusually soft. "This court owes you an apology. I owe you an apology. I allowed prejudice to cloud my judgment. I assumed that extraordinary talent requires institutional validation, when you have demonstrated that true talent transcends institutions." She paused, as if the following words cost her physical effort to pronounce. "All charges against you are withdrawn. You are free of all accusation. Furthermore, I order that your computer and all your personal belongings be returned to you immediately." She struck the gavel one last time. "This case is closed." The room erupted in applause. Mina hugged Anya, both crying. Journalists ran toward the exits to publish the news. The professors surrounded Anya, offering apologies, job offers, academic opportunities. But Anya could only think of one thing. Finally, after a lifetime of being underestimated, the world had heard her voice, and that voice had spoken in 11 languages. The doors of the Metro West Detention Center opened with a metallic screech that sounded like celestial music. Anya took her first step as a free woman in days that had felt like years. The afternoon sun hit her face with an intensity that almost made her step back. Freedom, vindication, justice. But the scene that awaited her outside was not the tranquility she had imagined. Dozens of journalists pounced on her like waves breaking against the shore, cameras flashing, microphones extending like tentacles, voices shouting questions that mixed into an incomprehensible chaos. "Miss Sharma, how do you feel? Is Anya going to sue Justice Vance? Tell us about Professor Moreau. Is it true you speak 11 languages?" Mena appeared by her side, forming a protective shield with her body as they tried to push their way toward the waiting vehicle. But before they could advance 2 meters, an elegant woman cut directly into their path. She was of imposing stature, silver hair perfectly styled, a suit that screamed power and money. Eleanor Ellie Northwood, according to the corporate ID hanging from her neck, CEO of Northwood Global Translation Services. "Miss Sharma," her voice cut through the surrounding noise with natural authority. "I am Ellie Northwood. I need to speak with you now." "Miss Northwood, my client has just been released." Mina intervened. "This is not the appropriate time. I understand perfectly, but what I have to tell you cannot wait." Northwood looked directly at Anya, completely ignoring Mina. "Your case has generated international attention. I have 17 job offers from different countries for you, and something more important. Information about your grandmother that I believe you will want to hear." Anya stopped dead in her tracks. "My grandmother? What do you know about my grandmother?" "Not here." Northwood pointed toward a black limousine parked discreetly half a block away. 5 minutes of your time. If you want to leave afterwards, I will personally drive you wherever you wish. Mina squeezed Anya's arm in warning, but there was something in Northwood's eyes that was not threatening. It was urgency mixed with respect. All right, Anya accepted. 5 minutes. Inside the limousine, away from the chaos of journalists, Northwood handed her a leather folder. 20 years ago, I was the HR director at one of the country's most prestigious translation agencies. Your grandmother, Lucia Sharma, applied for a position. We rejected her. Anya felt a pang of pain in her chest. Why are you telling me this? Because we made the same mistake that the system made with you. Lucia spoke 6 languages fluently, but she had no university degrees. We rejected her without even evaluating her properly. She wrote me a letter after that interview, a letter I kept for 2 decades because I was too ashamed to reread it. Northwood took out a yellowed envelope from the folder. The handwriting was her grandmother's. Anya would recognize it anywhere. Read it, Northwood insisted. With trembling hands, Anya opened the envelope and began to read. Her grandmother's words flowed from the page like a river of wisdom and pain. Dear Miss Northwood, I do not blame you for rejecting me. The world runs on paper, not capacity. But I want you to know that I will dedicate my life to ensuring that my granddaughter never has to beg for opportunities she deserves. I will teach her everything I know, and someday, when she succeeds, I hope you remember that talent does not need external validation to be real. Anya finished reading with tears rolling down her cheeks. Her grandmother had always known, had always planned to prepare her for a world that would reject them both. When I saw your case in the news, Northwood continued softly, I knew instantly who you were, Lucia's granddaughter, the child she spoke of in that letter. And I realized I had the opportunity to correct a mistake I made 2 decades ago. What do you want from me? Anya asked directly. I want to hire you, not as a common translator, but as the director of non-conventional talent. Your job will be to identify and recruit people like you, people with extraordinary skills but without traditional credentials, people the system ignores. The offer was tempting, almost too good to be true, but something in Northwood's expression told Anya there was more. What else? She pressed. Northwood smiled slightly. You are perceptive. Good. There's something else. Your grandmother worked for many diplomatic families, as you know. But there is one family in particular, the Sinclairs, for whom she worked during the last 5 years of her life. They were British diplomats posted to Ottawa. They left the country abruptly 3 years ago and they left something for you. Something your grandmother asked them to guard until you were ready. Sir Charles Sinclair contacted me yesterday after seeing your case in the news. He is in the city. He wants to meet with you. Before Anya could respond, her phone, just returned by the police, began ringing incessantly. Missed calls, text messages, exploding social media notifications. One message in particular caught her attention. It was from an unknown number with an international prefix. Miss Sharma, I'm Agent Samuel Cross from the International Refugee Organization. Your story has resonated with millions. We have a proposal that could change lives. Please contact me urgently. Mina, who had been checking her own phone, looked up with an expression of shock. Anya, you need to see this. She showed her screen. The video of the hearing had gone viral. More than 15 million views in less than 6 hours. The hashtag number Justice for Anya was trending worldwide. But that wasn't all. There was another video published just minutes ago. Someone had leaked the security footage from the detention center. In it, Anya was clearly seen studying all night, murmuring in different languages, preparing with a determination that bordered on superhuman. The whole world is talking about you, Mina murmured. You are a symbol now. I don't want to be a symbol, Anya replied with a tired voice. I just want to live my life. Too late for that. Northwood intervened pragmatically. You now have a platform. The question is, what are you going to do with it? The phone rang again. This time, it was a number Anya recognized. Brenda, her cellmate. Anya, you need to come. It's urgent. Brenda, what's wrong? It's about Director Thompson. It turns out he also has secrets, and I think they are connected to your grandmother. But I can't talk on the phone, you have to come. The call cut off abruptly. Anya looked at Mina with rising alarm. Something is wrong. Brenda sounded scared. Before they could decide what to do, another figure appeared at the limousine window. An older man, about 60, with a gentle but urgent expression, tapped the glass softly. Northwood lowered the window. Dr. Finch, Miss Northwood, thank you for contacting me. The man spoke with a refined British accent. Miss Sharma, I am Dr. Alistair Finch. I worked as the personal physician for the Sinclair family for years. I also treated your grandmother Lucia in her last months. Anya got out of the limousine, feeling the world spinning too fast. You knew my grandmother? I knew her very well, and there are things about her death that you need to know. Things she made me promise to tell you when the time was right. What things? Doctor. Finch looked nervously around. Not here. There are people who would prefer certain information to remain buried. Your grandmother did not die of a simple heart attack, Miss Sharma. There were complications that she kept secret. Complications related to something she discovered while working for the Sinclairs. Anya's heart began to pound. What did she discover? Documents. Sensitive information about trafficking networks that use diplomatic families as cover. Your grandmother reported them to the appropriate authorities, but she died before she could formally testify. Anya's world stopped. Are you saying my grandmother was? I don't know for sure. The doctor quickly interrupted. What I do know is that she left evidence stored away, evidence that the Sinclairs protected after her death. And now that you are in the public eye, there are people who will want to ensure that evidence never sees the light. Mina placed herself protectively beside Anya. Dr. Finch, these are serious accusations. Do you have proof? I have Lucia's complete medical records, and I have the letters she wrote me in her last days. Letters where she specifically mentions that if something happened to her, I should contact her granddaughter when she was strong enough to handle the truth. He pulled a thick envelope from his briefcase. This is just the beginning, Miss Sharma. Your grandmother documented everything meticulously. Names, dates, trafficking routes. She stored it all in a safe deposit box at a Swiss global trust bank, and you are the only person authorized to open it. Anya took the envelope, feeling its weight, not just physical but emotional. Where is this box? Geneva, Switzerland, Swiss Global Trust Bank. Your grandmother gave me the exact instructions before she died. She said, when Anya proves to the world what she is capable of, when she can no longer be ignored or silenced, then she will be ready to know the whole truth. The words echoed in the silence of the limousine. All her life, Anya had thought her grandmother was simply a domestic worker who loved languages. But now she was discovering she had been much more a woman who had seen injustice and had the courage to confront it, even knowing the price she might pay. Is there anything else? Dr. Finch added, his expression becoming even more serious. The third client who accused you, the one who never withdrew his charges, his name is Marcus Thorne. He works for a private security corporation with deep connections in diplomatic circles. I don't think it's a coincidence that he was the only one who maintained the accusations until the end. Are you suggesting my accusation was orchestrated? Anya felt a chill run down her spine. I am suggesting that when your case went public, certain people saw an opportunity to discredit you before you could become a problem, before you could discover what your grandmother knew. Mina grabbed her phone. We need police protection now. But before she could make the call, a black van stopped abruptly in front of the limousine. A middle-aged man with a serious expression, a federal ID hanging from his neck, stepped out. I am Agent Samuel Cross, Miss Sharma. I need you to come with me. Your life may be in danger. How did you know where to find me? Anya asked, her survival instinct activating. Because we have been monitoring communications related to your case, and we just intercepted a very worrying conversation. There is an active contract on you. Someone wants to make sure you never reach Geneva. The world Anya had just regained was about to become much more dangerous, and the answers she sought were thousands of kilometers away in a safe deposit box that contained secrets someone was willing to kill to protect. The decision was instantaneous. Anya looked Agent Cross directly in the eyes. I'm not going anywhere until I speak to Brenda. She needs me. Miss Sharma, you don't understand the gravity, Cross insisted. There are dangerous people looking for you right now, and there is a friend who risked everything to help me when no one else would. Anya replied firmly. I won't abandon her now. Mina touched her arm. Anya, maybe you should listen to the agent. I'll go with you. Dr. Finch intervened unexpectedly. If there is a connection between the director of the complex and what your grandmother discovered, you need to know it, and I can help protect you. Northwood closed her phone. I have private security contacts. I can have a team there in 10 minutes. Cross sighed, recognizing he had lost this battle. Fine, but I'm going with you, and if I see anything suspicious, we leave immediately. 15 minutes later, they were back at the Metro West Detention Center. The building Anya had left with relief now greeted her with a sense of menace she hadn't felt before. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting unsettling shadows in the white corridors. Officer Daniela Cortes, a young guard with a kind expression who had always been gentle with Anya, was waiting for them at the entrance. Miss Sharma, thank you for coming. she whispered nervously. Brenda is very upset. She keeps saying that the director has something to do with your grandmother. I don't understand what she means, but she insists she will only speak to you. Where is Director Thompson? Cross asked with a professional tone. In his office. He's been making calls all day. Since Miss Sharma's case went viral. He's been extremely nervous. Cortez guided them through corridors. Anya knew too well. When they reached cell 47C, Brenda was sitting on her bunk, hugging her knees with an expression that mixed fear and determination. She jumped up when the door opened. Thank goodness you came. I thought maybe you wouldn't after everything you went through here. Brenda, what's wrong? What did you discover? Brenda looked nervously at the others present. Cross showed his federal ID. Everything you say here is protected. If you have relevant information, we need to hear it. Brenda took a deep breath. 2 days ago, I was cleaning near Director Thompson's office. The door was ajar, and I overheard a phone conversation. He was talking to someone about Anya. He said things like, the old woman was a problem, and the granddaughter can't know what she found. Anya's heart stopped. The old woman? Was he referring to my grandmother? That's what I thought at first, but I wasn't sure. Then, today, after you were released, he was more upset. He made another call. This time I heard clearly. He mentioned the name Lucia Sharma and something about documents that should never have reached her granddaughter's hands. Dr. Finch stepped forward. Brenda, did he mention the Sinclair family or international networks? Yes. Brenda nodded vigorously. He said the Sinclairs were foolish to keep those papers, that they should have destroyed them when they had the chance. Cross pulled out his phone and started making urgent calls. Mina sat down, her mind working at full speed, processing the legal implications. But Anya could only feel one thing: rage. Rage that her grandmother had been put in danger. Rage that her death possibly hadn't been natural. Rage that even now, years later, the shadows of the past were still pursuing them. I need to talk to him, she said with a dangerously calm voice. I need to talk to Thompson now. Anya, that's not prudent, Mina warned. I don't care about prudence. Anya turned to Cross. You're a federal agent. You can make this official. I need answers about my grandmother. Cross considered for a moment. Then he nodded. I'll ask some questions, but you come with me, and if it gets dangerous, we leave. Director Gerald Thompson's office was on the 3rd floor. He was a man of thick build, with thinning hair, and that kind of nervousness that only guilt can generate. When Cross entered, showing his federal ID, the color drained from his face. Agent, how can I help you? His voice trembled slightly. Director Thompson, I have some questions about Lucia Sharma. The director blinked repeatedly. Lucia Sharma. I don't know anyone by that name. Liar. Anya entered the office, ignoring Cross's attempt to stop her. My grandmother worked cleaning this complex during the last year of her life. You knew her, and apparently, you also knew what she had discovered. Thompson stood up abruptly. Miss, I don't know what you're talking about. Then let me refresh your memory. Cross pulled out his recorder. I have witnesses who overheard you talking about the old woman and documents. Would you like to explain that to me? The director began to sweat visibly. His eyes darted between Cross, Anya, and the door, like a trapped animal looking for escape. I just worked here. I didn't know anything about what she did outside. But you did know something. Anya leaned over the desk. My grandmother died 2 years ago. Her death was sudden, convenient, just before she could testify about what she had discovered. I had nothing to do with her death, Thompson shouted, losing his composure. It was her heart. The doctors said so. Then you did know her, Cross observed coldly. A moment ago you said you didn't know anyone by that name. Thompson sank into his chair, defeated. All right. I knew Lucia. She worked here cleaning for months. She was a good woman, quiet. But one day she came to me with information. Dangerous information. What information? Anya felt tears threatening to surface, but she held them back with willpower. She said that while working for the diplomatic families, she had seen things. Documents about people being moved illegally, families used as cover for criminal operations. She showed me copies. She asked me to help her report it to the appropriate authorities. And you did? Thompson lowered his gaze, unable to face Anya's eyes. I told her I would, but I was scared. The people involved were powerful, they had connections, they had money. So I reported her intentions to someone else. The silence that fell in the office was heavier than any verbal accusation. You betrayed her. Anya whispered the words barely audibly. My grandmother trusted you, and you sold her out. I didn't know what they were going to do. Thompson was sobbing openly now. They just told me they would keep an eye on her, that they would make sure she didn't cause any trouble. I never thought that they would kill her." Anya finished the sentence. "I don't know if they did," Thompson sobbed. "Her death was natural according to all reports, but I always wondered. I always lived with that doubt." Cross was already on the phone, requesting forensic teams, arrest warrants, full investigations, but Anya could barely hear anything beyond the roar of blood in her ears. "Doctor." Finch placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Anya, there is something else you need to know. Something your grandmother gave me before she died." From his briefcase, he took out a small, time-worn envelope. "She asked me to give it to you when you were ready. I believe this is the moment." With trembling hands, Anya opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in her grandmother's hand, the same hand she had seen in cookbooks, on shopping notes, in messages of maternal love. "My dearest Anya," it began, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. It means, Doctor, Finch kept his promise, and it means you are finally strong enough to know the whole truth. All your life I taught you languages. I taught you that words have power, that communication builds bridges, that understanding others is understanding the world. But I never told you why it was so important to me that you learn. When I was young, I witnessed injustices that I couldn't stop. I saw people being exploited, families being separated, innocents being harmed, and I couldn't do anything because I had no power, no voice, no way to be heard. But you, my love, you have something I never had. You have the gift of tongues. You can speak for those who have no voice. You can translate not just words, but injustices into justice, silence into truth. The documents I left in Geneva are not just evidence of crimes. They are the voices of people who need to be heard, and you are the only one who can give them that voice. I know the path will be difficult. I know there will be people who will try to silence you, as they tried to silence me. But I also know you are stronger than I ever was. Because you have not only knowledge, you have courage. Do not cry for me, my little one. If my heart stops before I can see your triumph, I will know it was because it gave everything to prepare you. And that is enough. Every language I taught you, every story I shared, every moment we spent together was preparing you for this moment, for when the world would finally hear you. Now go. Go to Geneva. Open that box. Tell those stories. Give voice to the silenced. And when you do, you will know that your grandmother is proud, not because you speak 10 languages or 20, but because you chose to use your gift for something greater than yourself. I love you, my child. I always did. I always will. Your grandmother Lucia." Anya finished reading, and the tears she had held back for days finally flowed freely. They were not just tears of sadness, but of understanding, of purpose, of love that transcended even death. Brenda hugged her, crying too. Mena had tears rolling down her cheeks. Even Cross, the hardened federal agent, had to discreetly wipe his eyes. Dr. Finch spoke softly. "Your grandmother knew her time was limited. Her heart was weak, and the stress of what she had discovered made it worse. But she didn't stop. She kept documenting. She kept collecting evidence. She kept fighting, because she knew you would continue her work." Anya folded the letter carefully, holding it against her chest as if it were her grandmother's embrace. "I will go to Geneva," she said, her voice clear despite the tears. "I will finish what she started." "You won't go alone." Northwood entered the office, her expression determined. "My company has offices in Switzerland. You will have all the protection and resources you need. And I'm coming with you," Mena added, "as your lawyer and your friend." "Me too," Brenda said surprisingly. "I get released in 2 days. And after what they did to your grandmother, I want to help." Cross closed his phone. "The RCMP and the FBI are interested in this case. You will have federal protection during the trip." "And Thompson." He turned toward the sobbing director. "You are under arrest for obstruction of justice and conspiracy." As Thompson was escorted out of his office in handcuffs, Anya felt something shift inside her. She was no longer just a young woman trying to prove her worth. She was the heiress of a legacy of courage and justice. Her grandmother had planted seeds of hope in the form of languages. Now, those seeds had grown into something more powerful, a voice that could not be silenced. At that moment, Northwood's phone rang. She answered briefly, her expression turning serious. "It's Mrs. Sinclair. She's in the city. She says she has something else your grandmother left her. Something she didn't entrust even to the bank. She wants to meet you tonight." Anya nodded. Each revelation brought her closer to fully understanding who her grandmother had been and what she had sacrificed. "Then, let's go," she said. "There is no more time to lose, because somewhere, in a safe deposit box in Geneva, awaited truths that would change lives. And Anya Sharma was ready to give them a voice. The hotel where Mrs. Margaret Sinclair was staying was one of those places that whispered stories of lives lived with elegance and purpose. Anya, accompanied by Mayna, Dr. Finch, and Northwood, was received in a suite overlooking the illuminated city. Margaret Sinclair was a woman with perfectly styled silver hair, blue eyes that had seen too much of the world, and that dignity that only comes from a life dedicated to serving something greater than oneself. When she saw Anya, her eyes filled with tears. "You are exactly as she said you would be," Margaret whispered, taking Anya's hands in hers. "Lucia spoke of you every day. She said you were her masterpiece, her living legacy. Mrs. Sinclair, what do you know about my grandmother?" Margaret invited them to sit down. Her hands trembled slightly as she prepared tea. "Your grandmother Lucia worked for my family for 5 years. She wasn't just our employee, she was part of our family. My husband was a British ambassador to Ottawa, and Lucia was with us at every posting. But what no one knew is that Lucia had a special gift." "What gift?" "She could read people, understand intentions, and her knowledge of languages allowed her to overhear conversations others thought were private." Margaret paused, her eyes distant with memories. "One night, during a diplomatic reception at our home, Lucia was serving when she overheard a conversation in Russian between 2 diplomats. They were discussing a network that used diplomatic families as cover to move people against their will. The silence in the room was absolute. Lucia came to me that night, trembling. She told me everything. My husband and I were horrified. He wanted to report it immediately, but Lucia insisted on collecting more evidence first. For months, she meticulously documented everything. Names, dates, routes. She used her invisible position to be present at meetings where no one thought she understood what they were saying. And why didn't they report it when they had enough evidence? Margaret got up and went to a small chest on the table. "Because we discovered that the network had connections at high levels of multiple governments. We didn't know who to trust. Then, my husband died. A sudden heart attack during a diplomatic meeting." Her voice broke. "Officially it was his heart, but I've always wondered. Just before he died, he had said he was ready to expose everything, regardless of the consequences. Lucia was afraid after that," Margaret continued. "Afraid that the same thing would happen to her, but not afraid for herself, but afraid to leave you alone, Anya. So she gave me this." She opened the chest and made me promise that I would only give it to you when you were strong enough, when the world was ready to listen to you. From the chest, she pulled out a small external hard drive and a thick envelope. "Here is everything. Audio recordings of diplomatic meetings where these operations were discussed, photographs, original documents, and most importantly, testimonies from victims Lucia met and secretly helped for years." Anya took the drive with trembling hands. It was small, but it contained the weight of entire lives. "Is there anything else?" Margaret added softly. "The box in Geneva contains the documentary evidence, but this," she pointed to the drive, "contains the voices, the real stories of people who were silenced. Lucia recorded them with permission in their own languages. She knew you would be the one to finally translate them, to give them a voice to the world." That night, Anya barely slept. With headphones on, she listened hour after hour to the recordings. Voices in Mandarin, in Arabic, in Russian, in languages she knew intimately. Stories of separated families, of broken promises, of destroyed hopes. And in every recording, at the end, was her grandmother's voice, her maternal warning, promising that their stories would be told. When dawn broke, Anya had dry tears on her cheeks, but renewed fire in her soul. The flight to Geneva left the next day. Anya traveled with Mina, Brenda, who had been released as promised, Northwood, and a security escort coordinated by Agent Cross. The federal investigation had discovered that Marcus Thorne, the third client, was actually a private security operative hired to discredit Anya before she became a public voice. He was arrested trying to leave the country. Geneva greeted them with gray skies, but with promises of justice. The Swiss Global Trust Bank was a fortress of marble and steel, designed to protect secrets for generations. In a private room with a Swiss notary present, Anya opened safe deposit box number 4721. Inside were meticulously organized folders, each labeled in her grandmother's handwriting, with names, dates, locations. But what most impacted Anya was finding a photo album at the bottom of the box, photos of herself throughout the years. Her first day of school, learning to write in Arabic, reading books in French. Each photo had a note from her grandmother on the back. The last photo was of Anya at 16, smiling while holding a certificate from an online translation course. The note read, "The day I knew you were ready. Only the world needed to be ready too." Anya hugged the album to her chest, sobbing. Mina hugged her, then Brenda, then everyone present. It was a moment of pain and love so deeply intertwined that there were no words in any language to describe it adequately. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Anya, with the help of Mina and an international legal team, presented all the evidence to the International Court of Justice. The case caused an earthquake in diplomatic circles. 3 international networks were dismantled. 17 corrupt officials were arrested in 6 different countries. But more important than the arrests was what Anya did with the recordings. She created a documentary titled Voices of Silence. In it, she personally translated each testimony, giving voice to those who had been silenced. She didn't just translate words. She captured emotions, cultural contexts, the essential humanity of each story. The documentary went globally viral, more than 100 million views in the first week. Governments were forced to respond. Policies changed. Lives were saved. Ambassador Anya Petrova of the United Nations personally contacted Anya. "Miss Sharma, your work has exposed injustices that governments ignored for decades. On behalf of the United Nations, I would like to offer you a position as Special Translator for Human Rights. Your job would be to give voice to people the world needs to hear." Anya accepted, but with one condition, that the position include a program to identify and train other young talents without formal credentials. Real talent, she argued, shouldn't need institutional validation to be recognized. Her proposal was accepted unanimously. 6 months later, Anya stood in the same courtroom where she had once been humiliated. But this time, she was not the accused, but the invited speaker at an international conference on linguistic justice. Justice Eleanor Vance was present at the hearing. She had retired early after her handling of Anya's case generated investigations into other cases where she may have allowed prejudice to affect her judgment. At the end of her speech, Justice Vance approached her. "Miss Sharma." Her voice was humble, so different from the arrogant woman she had been. "No apology is enough for how I treated you, but I want you to know that your case changed my life. It forced me to confront prejudices I didn't even know I had. I am now working with the judicial system to implement reforms that prevent other judges from making the same mistakes I made." "Justice Vance," Anya replied, "forgiveness does not erase the harm, but it opens paths towards something better. Your recognition means more than your apologies, because it shows that people can change, learn, and grow." They shook hands, and in that gesture there was healing, not only for them, but as a symbol of what the judicial system could become. Brenda Lacroix had rebuilt her life with Northwood's help. She now worked coordinating rehabilitation programs for unjustly incarcerated people. "You gave me hope when I didn't have it," she told Anya. "Now I want to give that same hope to others." Meena Patel received national recognition as Public Defender of the Year, but what she was most proud of were not the awards, but the letters she received from grateful clients, inspired by her passionate defense of Anya. Professor Julian Moreau resigned from his position after a university investigation confirmed multiple cases of plagiarism. His fall served as a warning to other academics about the importance of integrity. David Kim, the engineer who had the courage to confess first, established a foundation dedicated to supporting non-conventional talents. "Anya taught me that honor is worth more than money or position," he explained in an interview. Maya, the young woman from the detention center who had risked her job to help Anya, received a full scholarship to study social work, sponsored by the program Anya had established. 1 year after the day Anya had been arrested, she stood in front of the cemetery where her grandmother was buried. She had traveled from Geneva specifically for this moment. She placed fresh flowers on the grave and knelt. "Grandmother," she spoke softly, "I finished what you started. The voices you helped protect are now being heard by the whole world. The networks you documented were dismantled. The people who tried to silence us failed." A gentle breeze moved the leaves of the nearby trees, as if nature itself was listening. "But more than that, Grandmother, I finally understood why you taught me all those languages. It wasn't just about words. It was about empathy, about connection, about understanding that every person, regardless of their language or origin, has a story that deserves to be heard." Anya took the photo album from her bag, the one she had found in the safe deposit box. She opened it to the last page, where she had pasted a new photo. It was of herself, standing in front of the United Nations, surrounded by people from all corners of the world. People whose stories she had translated, whose voices she had amplified. Look, grandmother, this is what we built together. Your sacrifice was not in vain. Your legacy lives on in every person who now has a voice thanks to what you taught me. As the sun set, Anya stayed there, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in years. Her grandmother had sown seeds of hope in the form of languages. Those seeds had grown into a garden of justice that would continue to flourish long after they were both gone. The next day, Anya gave her first class in the program she had created. 30 young people from diverse backgrounds, all with extraordinary talents, but without formal credentials, looked at her with hope and admiration. My grandmother used to tell me, Anya began, that talent doesn't need certificates to be real. It only needs opportunity to shine. You are here because each of you has a unique gift. My job is not to teach you, but to help you recognize the power you already have within. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. Miss Sharma, how do we know we are good enough? Anya smiled, remembering when she herself had asked that question. Why are you here? Because you dared to try when the world told you that you couldn't. That determination, that courage, is more valuable than any university degree. Months turned into years. Anya's program grew, expanding to 20 countries. Thousands of young talents found opportunities they otherwise never would have had. Some became translators, others cultural mediators, others human rights activists. But they all shared something in common: the belief that true talent transcends credentials, and that every voice, no matter how silenced it has been, deserves to be heard. At a special ceremony at the United Nations, Anya received the International Human Rights Award. As she held the recognition, she thought of all the people who had made this moment possible. Her grandmother, who had sacrificed everything; Brenda, who had believed in her when she was at her lowest point; Meena, who had fought for her against all odds; Kim, who had found the courage to tell the truth. In her acceptance speech, Anya did not talk about her accomplishments. She talked about her grandmother. Lucia Sharma never had a university degree. She never received official recognition for her work. But she understood something that the world is only beginning to learn: that the value of a person is not measured in certificates, but in character. Not in credentials, but in courage. Her voice broke slightly with emotion. This award is not mine. It is hers. It is for every person who was ever underestimated, ignored, or silenced. It is a reminder that extraordinary talent can come from ordinary places, and that sometimes the most powerful people are those the world never noticed. The ovation that followed lasted 5 full minutes. People from all over the world, virtually connected, applauded not only Anya, but all the Lucias of the world. All the grandmothers, mothers, invisible workers who had planted seeds of hope without knowing if they would ever bloom. That night, Anya was in her apartment in Geneva, looking out at the illuminated city. Her phone rang. It was an unknown number. Miss Sharma, I'm Maria. I'm 16 years old, and I live in a small town in Guatemala. I saw your documentary. I speak 5 languages that I learned from tourists who visited my town. Everyone tells me it's impossible for it to be true without formal education. But you gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, I can have a future too. Can I apply to your program? Anya smiled, tears in her eyes. Of course you can, Maria. Tell me your story. And as she listened to Maria's story, Anya understood that this was her grandmother's true legacy. Not the dismantled networks or the awards received, but every individual life that was touched, every talent that was recognized, every voice that was finally heard. The cycle continued, hope multiplied, and somewhere, Anya was sure, her grandmother Lucia was smiling. Because in the end, this was never a story about languages, or injustice, or trials. It was a story about love. The love of a grandmother who prepared her granddaughter to change the world. Love that transcended death, time, and circumstance. And that love, translated into 11 languages and 1,000 acts of courage, had illuminated the world.